What's up, Steam It? This is Luke Stokes. I wanted to talk a little bit about financial value and economics in general. How do we determine financial value? This is a conversation that comes up quite a bit when I'm talking about cryptocurrency, when I'm trying to explain where the money comes from, when there's disagreements on why this token's worth more than that token, or why gold or silver is worth more than this, or why fiat is real currency but cryptocurrency isn't, or vice versa. And so I wanted to just talk about this a little bit because, again, it comes up all the time. And I have a perspective on it, and I'm curious what your perspective is and what you think of my perspective. So to back up a little bit, I was thinking about this. This is a little bucket of tokens of value that we have in our closet, in our kitchen, in our cupboard. And you can see here we got all these tokens here. Here's a dollar one. That one might be worth something. And we use this with our kids. Here's some more pieces of paper with dead people on them. These are certificates of appreciation, tokens of value, money. And we use these with our kids when they do jobs around the house. When they take out the trash, things like that, we give them these tokens of value. And this example in particular, these have value in the United States. These are Federal Reserve notes. And there is a general consensus and understanding for U.S. citizens that those tokens of value can be redeemable for other value exchange from other human beings that believe the same thing. And that's essentially it. It's just this idea that there's a shared understanding, there's this shared knowledge across all these different human beings in this geographic region that say, yeah, well, if you did work, you changed reality, provided value to in your community, then I'm going to accept this token of value that you obtained for that to represent the work you did, and I'm going to believe that other people will accept it for me if I want them to do work for me. So it's really subjective. It's really determined in the moment of transaction. There's nothing intrinsically valuable about this from an economic standpoint. This is just pieces of paper. It's about the moment of transaction when someone says, yes, I'll buy that, or yes, I'll pay for that service. In that moment, they transact, and then we have price discovery. Financial value, from my perspective, is an emergent property of all these individual actors participating in financial transactions and creating price discovery. So we can look at it and say, oh, a barrel of oil is worth, a bucket of wheat is worth. These things have financial value. It emerges up as something that people want to pay for in a moment of transaction. And I think that's really important. It's completely based on context, and that also means it's kind of subjective. It's just what people are willing to pay. If you change the context, the entire financial value system can change. And we've seen this time and time again throughout history, where some natural disaster happens, or some governmental situation changes, or something happens in certain areas where things that were extremely valuable are immediately no longer valued, and things that nobody really cared about, all of a sudden really valued. So air, for example, extremely valuable, but has no financial value. It's completely abundant. There's nobody, it's just simple to have, but it's still valuable. So there's an important distinction between value and valuable, and specifically the subset of that I'm discussing, financial value. Financial value, I think, is really determined by actual transactions and interactions. And to kind of drive this home a little bit more, I was thinking about all this. This is actually a bunch of money that as a kid, my dad used to travel all over, and I used to save all these different bills from different countries. There's some from Canada. There's some from, there's some euros. Here's some rands from South Africa. And I used to save these. There's some of them are actually, they got all moldy, It's kind of ridiculous. But I used to save these to remember my dad's trips. He'd come back and he'd give us these little pieces of paper, these tokens of value. How valuable are these in the United States? Not very valuable. Unless you can exchange it for someone who cares about these specific currencies, they're just moldy pieces of paper. And I've got more here. Here's some, when we went to Costa Rica, here's some Costa Rican currency. I've got a bag full of super fun coins from all over the place. We've got, let's see what we got in here. We've got coins from There's a big old fat one. Yeah, there's a Costa Rican coin. I mean, you could just see some of these. All kinds of cool stuff in there. You know, maybe I'll take some pictures so I can. Yeah, there's one that's got a little funky. Anyway, I love this stuff. I love collecting these. I think they're super cool. But they're just tokens of value. That's all they are. And these, because these are tokens where the ledger, the shared understanding, the distributed database of all the people's perspectives is geographically based. These tokens don't have much value here in the US. I can't go to the store and go buy something. I can't exchange with them for financial value very easily because these are specific to a geographic region. So, you know, I also got a bunch of these. These are a bunch of $2 bills I used to save as a kid. I've got the old ones that have the little red marks on them. Those are super cool. But these are like all moldy and old. So they got all wet when I lived on a boat. But the idea, the basic point being that these certificates of value only have value because other people believe they do. Even the very money we use every single day, it's just a belief system. So when we talk about the value of cryptocurrencies and we talk about whether or not this project or that project has more financial value or should be valued more than another, I think it's easy to get confused there. I think it's easy to think that there's some concept of utility that is really going to drive everything. And I look at utility value as just a proxy for what individuals are actually deciding to do with their money in the moment of transaction based on the given context. So I've written about this before. I'll include a link to it as far as do speculators fear utility. I think utility value is extremely important. I think we actually, as a community, cryptocurrency community, need to spend a little more time, give a little more attention to it, because ultimately that utility value does, like I said, become a proxy for what individuals are actually willing to transact with financially for something. So Steemit has incredible utility value as a blogging platform. BitShares has utility value as an exchange, a decentralized exchange platform, and there are many others. So I think utility is important, but I think it's separate from financial value. Financial value, those numbers we assign to things, is purely based on the moment of transaction, and it is subjective. It's what people are willing to pay that creates that emergent property of the number we give to something. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I hope it gets you thinking a little bit differently when someone says, oh, this is undervalued, or that's overvalued, or this should be priced at this amount, and that should be priced at that amount. It really just depends on what people are willing to pay. And where we can do well as investors and speculators and cryptocurrency holders is find where there's an information asymmetry between what people currently perceive the value to be and what it actually can be or should be or will be in the future based on how we end up using that token, for what ways that token's going to benefit humanity, the way people are going to go, oh my goodness, if I had more of that token, my life would be better, so therefore I'm going to go purchase more. So those are the kind of things that, if we're thinking correctly about financial value and where it really comes from, what really drives it, how it's created, then I think we can do really well financially. And this to me is a pretty simple, basic concept in economics, but a lot of people, I think, get confused by it. They think that somehow the amount of labor you put into something, how hard you worked, determines the value. Maybe it's, again, just a proxy towards, well, if I believe you worked really hard and I value that work, then I might actually decide to pay you more for it. But it's just a proxy for what people are willing to pay in the moment of transaction. So I don't think labor theory of value makes a lot of sense. I don't think intrinsic value makes a lot of sense, because it is always going to be dependent upon what human beings, conscious creatures, decide to exchange for it. We invented this concept in the first place, so we get to control it. And this is important because I think governments and central banks and fractional reserve lending situations, they get this. They understand it very, very well, and they don't really teach it. It's not taught much in schools, and they kind of prey on those who don't understand it. And they're able to siphon off financial value through inflation, through all these things. And people don't mind because they don't understand. They say, well, I could still buy my bread, my milk. I guess I'm okay. And it's not okay if it's theft. If financial value is being stolen through inflation, as an example, then we should care about that if we care about morality and property rights and all these things. So understanding where financial value comes from is important. And I hope this video has at least got you thinking a little bit differently, or maybe got you to ask some questions, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you want to debate the principles I'm talking about. So definitely let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Take care and have a good day.